Hey everyone, it is Jim Campbell with Opkalla. We appreciate your patience. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but I think we're up and running now. So everyone who was in the waiting room should now be in attendance, which it looks like we are. So we could go get started. But again, my name is Jim Campbell. I'm one of the managing partners here at Opkalla. We appreciate the time today. Today will be a good 50 minutes to learn a little bit about CloudFlare and what they're doing different in the market, how they're supporting customers. We have the channel manager for CloudFlare, Ralph, with us today, which he'll be doing the heavy lifting. But just a couple housekeeping items for us. If you have questions, there should be a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. By all means, please submit a question, and we will either answer. I will either answer on the back end on the fly, or we could address them at the end. This webinar will be recorded, so for any folks who did not attend or could not join, you will be sent a recording of the webinar after we are finished. I would say within 24 hours, maybe even shorter. We will also send out the Amazon gift cards for those lucky enough to win it. So again, we're excited for you to join. We understand that everyone's busy and things get pretty hectic, but thank you for your patience, and we'll get going. So with that being said, Ralph, I will hand it to you to take us away, and let's get started.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Thank you to the entire Opkalla team and everybody on the phone. I appreciate you taking the time to second what Jim said. I know it's precious, and I appreciate you being willing to listen. So let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully, Jim, if you could just confirm with me, you see the title slide, Opkalla and CloudFlare?
I did, or I do.
I just want to confirm the slide changes.
Correct, it does.
Okay. So I thought the simplest way to do this, we've done the introductions, is kind of a who, what, when, where, why, and then go into Q&A at the end. This will give us a good foundation for how to get started. So from a who perspective, we like to say inside of CloudFlare that we're the biggest company no one's ever heard of. And if you really look at this slide, you'll see we've been around for about 11 years. We've got 3.5 million plus customers, 207 plus cities around the globe, and data centers and colos with 1,700 employees. So we're not a small company by any means. Just the reason a lot of people have not heard of us, at least in the large enterprise space, is because we were founded in the mid-market and content delivery space. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But hopefully you'll see that we're also publicly traded as of about 14 months ago under the ticker NET. And we've had a continual compounded annual growth rate, both in the enterprise and across the business as a whole. So what are we, right? We are an integrated platform for security, performance, and reliability. And what we've done differently than a lot of other vendors or players in this space is we're natively built in the cloud and managed by a single unified control plane. We've never had on-premise boxes. We've never had hardware that we've built for. We've always been natively in the cloud. And because of that, the platform allows us to make it makes it easy to build serverless applications using things like edge computing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So this is a little bit of architecture. This is the only slide that has architecture on it, but being that we're an integrated cloud platform, we have things that cross multiple chasms. Across the bottom, we have that global network that we're going to dive into a little deeper. We have the edge compute or serverless compute platform, and then we have things like zero trust architecture, network services, and application services. And this is ultimately what allows us to have what I mentioned on the previous slide, right? It's important to begin the conversation by grounding the mission. And the mission is bold, but it's to build a better internet, an internet that's faster, more reliable, and higher performing. You shouldn't have to sacrifice security for performance, as we all have over the past, 20 years or so. And to achieve this mission, the only way to do it was to build a global cloud platform that helps organizations secure, accelerate their applications and their employee access. And it's important to note that, we have 30 million internet properties and 67 terabits of throughput to every single data center But it's also important to note that we have all of our services available in every single data center and as close to the edge compute scenario as possible. We don't subscribe to the previous scrubbing methodology, if you will, for large data centers, small data centers, medium data centers. All of our data centers are identical, and they all provide the same services as close to the edge as possible. So why do enterprises choose Cloudflare, right? It's the network scale more than anything else. The network has the breadth and scale that organizations need to run their internet applications. And they benefit from this architecture because, as I said, all products and services run on every server in every data center, which improves the network for our customers with every new colo. Our network offers scale and performance that helps organizations deliver superior application experience. And we operate within 100 milliseconds of 99% of the internet-connected population. So we're within 100 milliseconds of almost everybody on the globe, and 15% of all internet traffic routes through Cloudflare. Now, I don't tell you that to impress you, but to impress upon you that when you're dealing with that much traffic and that much information, you have a lot of analytics and intelligence that come along with it. And those analytics and intelligence allow us to proactively thwart against future attacks. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But additionally, with the adoption of internet applications being deployed in the cloud, we have this unified control plane that spans across multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and on-premise deployments. So we provide this single interface to provide security policies and authentication and with third-party API integration with things like Duo or Okta. And we have the ability to let organizations benefit from having this unified control plane across potentially a multi-cloud environment. So instead of being siloed into only AWS or only Azure or only GCP, you have the ability to use them for what is best needed for your company, but be a proxy in front of all that, which is what Cloudflare is, to provide security policies for that as well as on-premise environments. And it's very easy to use, and it's very easy to onboard. We can be configured or administered either programmatically through APIs or through multi-user role-based access controls. It's very simple to turn on, turn off services, add or import security routes and protocols. And this integrated stack is easy to use and covers the products that are needed for what we mentioned before with the security, performance, and reliability, as well as edge computing. So let's talk a little bit about the immune system, right? We provide this comprehensive protection for customers and applications against the most sophisticated attack vectors. We block billions of attacks every day across our network. Most of the people that are on the receiving end of these attacks never knew they're happening, right? And they shouldn't. I mean, that's the idea. That's what hopefully you'll pay Opkalla and Cloudflare for, is to get rid of unnecessary, invaluable traffic and pass good traffic without the end user knowing the difference. So one of the products that's in this portfolio is something we call Magic Transit, right? And Magic Transit, before we get into the details of it, it's important to know where it came from, right? And how it came to be. So when the company was founded 10, 11 years ago now, we focused on building services for the application layer, for layer 7. So content caching, web app firewalls, load balancing, et cetera. But the services that we offer are dependent on our network, right? So our data centers with physical servers needed to be protected from distributed denial of service attacks themselves. And when we looked at how to do that, we realized that our options were either to buy existing DDoS mitigation boxes that were available at the time, or use existing cloud scrubbing providers. The problem was both of these solutions were not built with performance in mind. And quite frankly, they weren't built to withstand the volumetric and multi-vector sophisticated attacks that we're now seeing with things like Colonial Pipe and Akamai and a few of the other things you've recently seen in the news. So in essence, we built a distributed denial of service detection and mitigation pipeline on commodity hardware to protect our own networks. And basically, we're productizing this and making it available for our customers. So this product's being used for ourselves to protect our internal network, and we're also making it available for resale, if you will, for our customers. This is also a trend we're seeing with a lot of customers. Customers are looking to us for solutions that span all layers of the OSI model. So the pure IP workloads in layer 3, all the way up to the HTTP and HTTP requests in layer 7. How do we protect that without siloed point products that are difficult to manage and costly to maintain, and provide the best security, reliability, and performance at the same time? So going a little deeper, one more layer, we also talk to customers who still run their on-prem infrastructure and want protection from denial of service attacks. And Magic Transit's a great example of this. It's a DDoS mitigation and network firewall product, and it's not a new product. We've been using it for over 9 years now to protect our own infrastructure. What's new is that we're productizing it and making it available in front of customers' data centers to protect their network infrastructures from DDoS attacks. So some of the benefits, right? This is a little bit more of the why. Well, for one thing, it helps vendor consolidation. It helps customers who may be using an Imperva and an Oracle Dyn and a Prolexic today, get rid of those boxes, save on yearly annual maintenance costs, consolidate into a unified control plane for ease of management. And it makes a lot of the larger companies are at some stage of their path towards digital transformation. And as cliche as it sounds, Magic Transit does help companies further adopt the cloud, because the network functions delivered are as a service and they're easy to configure and manage. Secondly, it gives customers access to CloudFlare's expansive network. So it not only protects, but also accelerates anything connected to it. As we talked about earlier, when you have 15% of all internet traffic coming across your DNS routes, you very quickly adopt and understand where the quickest and shortest and open path is to those routes and to that information. So CloudFlare is one of the most interconnected networks in the world, and we work with our carriers, whether it's internet exchanges or peering partners around the world, to ensure that every bit is placed on our network will reach its destination quickly and reliably. And then finally, more and more companies we talk to are looking for ways to reduce capital expenditures. Magic Transit helps dramatically reduce CapEx and deliver operational agility with things like virtual network firewalls, which are delivered and billed as a service. So let's talk about one other aspect is Secure Access Service Edge, if you've heard that from Gartner in the past probably 6 or 9 months, or security as a service as a whole. This transformation that companies are going through, and good, bad, or indifferent, it was likely accelerated by the current pandemic that we're coming out of. You know, the world around us is changing more rapidly than we can anticipate. So businesses are transforming themselves and leveraging these digital services. And this digital transformation is often a key driver for how companies create value against their competitors, for their customers, and for their employees. And what we're doing is not new. We didn't set out to do this, right, 11 years ago when the company was founded, nor did Lenovo, HP, or Compaq expect that storage and compute would ultimately be moved to as a service in the cloud. But by building this enormous, highly redundant, highly available, and highly secure cloud platform, we're able to offer things like Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE. So, you know, over the years, storage and compute has been migrated to as a service. Same with the applications. Honestly, the next logical step is the network and the consolidation of these point solutions that are difficult to manage and costly to maintain. So here's where the ultimate challenge comes with the legacy castle and moat approach. Correct? Is that the internet's now the corporate network, right? Today's modern business needs a modern network, and unfortunately, that modern network is often the internet. And as the internet becomes where customers, employees, and vendors interact, the real question is, how do you scale that traditional castle and moat security model? You can't just take a box and wrap the internet holistically and say, okay, now it's secure. You know, it needs to be available everywhere. It needs to be secure, fast, and reliable. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the way we're able to do this is because of the investment that we've made up front in continually growing. And honestly, that 67 terabit number, when I joined Cloudflare 13, 14 months ago, it was around 32. So it doubles in size every year and will continue to. And the reason it does is, the volumetric attacks are becoming more and more significant. The usages that customers have for their web-facing properties is more and more profound and more intense. So we need to continue to scale and continue to grow, and that's exactly what we're doing. And because of this shared intelligence, this diverse set of internet properties across the globe, combined with machine learning, provides actionable and timely insights that help us secure and accelerate these internet applications. So, for instance, we can proactively defend against specific attacks. We can provide insight from traffic to a single website that can be applied across the entire network to prevent future attacks. We can block malicious traffic by classifying the bad traffic using something as simple as the source IP, or improve performance by routing traffic intelligently. A lot of our global customers like the fact that we've built an entirely physically separate network in China. We call it the China network. And from an auditing perspective, a traffic auditing perspective, they like the fact that they're able to seamlessly integrate with China, but still be able to audit that traffic and physically segment that traffic so it stays in that region. And then additionally, we can automatically, send updates to something like our web app firewall to protect against new and anticipated attacks. So what's the advantage, right? The flexibility. We're agnostic to the data center or the hosting provider. And that's often a difficult thing to convey, right? Because when CloudFlare says it's a global cloud platform, people instantly think, oh, I could buy connectivity through CloudFlare instead of Equinix or AWS or Azure. That's not the case. We don't sell connectivity. We sell the services and security as a proxy to sit in front of whatever that connectivity may be. It could be a direct interconnect with an Equinix. It could be a CenturyLink, MPLS network. It could be a public cloud or private cloud. It's irrelevant to us, but that's the beauty of it being irrelevant to us, is that you can provide your security and your architecture and your policies front-ended from a unified control plane. And then from an implementation perspective, it's very simple to use. I mean, you can literally just make a DNS change or an authoritative or CNAME change and point to CloudFlare as your front end. And that'll give you the ability to adopt additional services. So you may purely use CloudFlare to start as something as secondary DNS. So your current DNS records reside on premise, but you want a secondary for failover. No problem. You can very inexpensively use CloudFlare as your secondary DNS in the event something happens to your on-prem environment. But what hopefully you'll quickly see is that when you use that, you're able to turn on functionality for an inexpensive cost, but more importantly, easy to deploy. So this talks a little bit more to our security as a service, right? This simple, integrated, intelligent protection. And we're passionate about creating security solutions that protect customers' apps and data, agnostic of where it resides. And I apologize to keep harping on that, but I think it's incredibly important. Whether it's on-premise or in the cloud, it doesn't matter to us. That's our main focus. So that's why we put that in the center of our entire design philosophy. Then we look at the threat landscape of the customers, things like zero-day vulnerabilities or brute force logins, API abuse, bot attacks. And obviously, bot attacks are important because it's not just important to block bots. It's important to know what bots are good bots and what bots are bad bots, and to let in those that are good. So part of our global cloud platform, we offer security as a service that thwarts attacks that attempt to leverage any of those previously mentioned attack vectors. And it includes everything, but not limited to WAF, layer 3, layer 4, layer 7 denial of service protection, rate limiting, SSL, TLS. So we have multiple offerings around SSL, TLS. I won't get too deep into the weeds, but we could do something as simple as just protect it. We could have you host it in our environment, or we could literally manage SSL and TLS certs for you in our environment, or allow you to manage them in our environment. So there's a lot of comprehensive protection for our customers' data and applications. Okay, I didn't put this slide in here, and please, I hope you understand, to bash anybody. It's not meant to do that. It's only meant for you to better understand who CloudFlare is, because as I mentioned in the first couple of slides. Not a lot of people know who we are. But from an on-premise perspective, if you currently have products like F5, Cisco Umbrella, Imperva, Riverbed for application acceleration or traffic management, whatever the case may be, they're all great products. The limitation with those products is they're point products. They're complex, they're often expensive, and a lot of times they're not truly suited to addressing cloud-based or hybrid deployments. And the same with point cloud solutions, right? Akamai CDN's been around for a very long time. And for some reason, in this day and age, it's still extremely expensive. It's not on a CloudFlare network. It's roughly 30% the cost of an Akamai environment. But that's just one aspect of what CloudFlare does and allows our customers to use, right? If you use Oracle Dyn for DNS routes, or Umbrella or Fastly, you can easily consolidate that and make it a single point of presence and management in your infrastructure. And then, as we mentioned earlier, and as I keep harping on, this public cloud infrastructure, it's the inability to serve as a unified control plane across on-premise, cloud, hybrid, and software as a service infrastructures gives us a great play to go into larger enterprises and say, oh, you're using O365 in Azure, you're using AWS for this, you're using Salesforce for that. What if we could give you a single management interface to control all that and to push and provide security policies for? Same with this slide. There's a lot of vendor consolidation that can happen. It doesn't mean it has to happen. I don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that what Jim and I are talking about is an enterprise-wide licensing agreement. It's not the case. If you only see CloudFlare for the value of smart routing to get applications and content to your employees and your customers faster, that's no problem. We can definitely do that. But we can also scale to replace things that you may be using, like DDoS in a Arbor environment for physical layer 3 connectivity, and provide you Imperva for layer 7 at the same time, or TLS or firewall, et cetera. So this is an example, and this is obviously a pretty large one, right? We all know who Wikipedia is. It's one of the most visited websites in the world. I think it has, last I heard, it was over 25 billion monthly page views. And that Wikimedia Foundation hosts 13 collaborative knowledge projects, one of them being Wikipedia. There's a lot of other ones like Wikibooks and Wiktionary and Wikidata, et cetera. But bottom line is they experienced a massive denial of service attack in September 2019. So we reached out. Within a few hours, they responded, and they said that we might be able to help them if we could recover the persistent attacks that are being targeted at Wikipedia that have currently been knocked offline. So CloudFlare worked closely with the team to get Magic Transit in place, which we talked about a few slides ago. And once it was able to show results, the deployment was expanded to cover the entire site presence. So not only were they able to restore global service to Wikipedia, but the imposed latency was minimal. So it was like 66 milliseconds versus 63 milliseconds before we got involved. And there was really no notice at all once we were inserted in their network. So they've since deployed Magic Transit as a core part of their network infrastructure and leveraged the broad threat intelligence that we have to offer to help mitigate the debilitating impact of future attacks. And I promise I'm going to stop in about 5 minutes here and leave questions for Q&A. But without naming names, I'm going to talk about another use case. If you're in the Southeast and you've had an issue getting gasoline about 3 weeks back, you're probably familiar with this. But there was a massive ransomware attack that was paid. And bottom line is, even after it was paid, the company came to CloudFlare and said, we cannot get our DNS records back online in a timely facet. Can you help us? So within 48 hours, we were able to get roughly 4,000 primary DNS names and about 6,000 sub DNS domains online, out of the attack vector and off the ransomware and up and running in our environment for this multinational oil and gas company. And we're currently onboarding them within Magic Transit in an always-on mode. So there's always on and always available, right? If the worry for denial of service or ransomware as a whole is, one in a million, then maybe it's an always available scenario. But the always-on scenario is the scenario that continually has Cloudflare front-ending traffic and only passing the good traffic. So that billions of, I think we get 7 billions of threat traffic every day that we thwart. That's part of something that this company would never see on the back end. And then just a couple other examples. You know, we talked about Cloudflare, how we offer solutions that are faster, better, and more cost effective. National Instruments is a large vendor of automated testing and measurement tools, right? The company's lineup of software and module hardware is used for everything from circuit design to biomedical research. National Instruments struggled to deliver large file downloads to its customers, despite having an existing content delivery network. But by moving to Cloudflare, they were able to dramatically improve download speeds, including and not limited to China. But the Cloudflare workers enabled National Instruments to customize its setup and iterate quickly on new improvements. And I think that's one thing that we take for granted as a company because we do it so easily. But if you make a security policy change, whether it's geographic, CNAME based, whatever the case may be, if you make it changed in your Cloudflare environment, it propagates across the globe in a matter of minutes. It's not a matter of hours or days to make a security change to a GSLB load balancer that sits in another data center. It is done instantly, and it's because of the speed and size of our infrastructure. And then from a Zendesk perspective, if you're not familiar, you know, they're a huge company around customer service software. They were having an issue with load site agnostics of visitor locations and being able to protect from web threats. And we helped optimize the front end and the back end system. They use our CDN today. Their security products and utilize Cloudflare for cookie-based key caching as well. They're also one of our early adopters of remote browser isolation, which is a somewhat new product that significantly helps remote workforces protect against vulnerability attacks in the browser. And then Shopify, finally, they're a huge e-commerce platform. They power millions of storefronts. And Black Friday, as you can imagine, is a very tough day for all e-commerce because traffic volumes spike significantly. So Shopify uses Cloudflare's load balancing and DNS to address those traffic spikes. All right, and let me stop there. I think that's all I had. I know I kind of ran through that quick, Jim, but are there any questions or concerns on the line I might be able to answer?
Yeah, I'm looking right now, Ralph. I guess I have a question, or maybe a couple questions. One
Sure.
of them being, and I think you've maybe answered this, but for organizations who aren't a Cloudflare customer today, is Magic Transit kind of the low-hanging fruit? Is that the kind of first product or solution that your customers are engaging Cloudflare on? Or I guess by the numbers, is that kind of your most popular product to start? And I don't know if you have the data to support that, but I'm just curious if that's kind of where a lot of these start.
Yeah, I do. I do have the data to support that, Jim, and you're absolutely right. It is our largest seller, if you will. I think it makes up roughly about 40% of our revenue to date. And I think part of the reason that it is there's two scenarios for Magic Transit, right? One of them is a customer proactively works with Opkalla and recognizes that their web-facing properties, their on-premise infrastructure, and their multi-cloud environments could at any time be under attack, and it could cost a lot of money. The other one is, and this is what happened with that national oil and gas company, right, is they were under attack, and they called Cloudflare and said, look, we are under attack. And there's another account in Charlotte who was the same way. We are under attack. We need to get this off and not pay ransomware. How can you help us do that? And how quickly can you help us do that? So, and ironically, as you could probably guess, these things tend to happen on a Friday night. It's 5 o'clock, right. You're getting ready to shut down for the weekend, and you get an under attack. But we have people obviously working around the clock, myself included, that are somewhat proficient in onboarding and getting the routes where they need to be and getting them on Cloudflare's internet.
Yeah, I think obviously that's intentional, right? To attack when it's when everyone doesn't want to be attacked, I guess.
Exactly.
All right, we have another question, a tough question, but maybe one you could answer, Ralph, is if SolarWinds was using your product, would it have prevented the issues with the supply chain attack they experienced?
It's actually a great question. I can send you, or I can send Jim, and Jim can forward to you a write-up on that SolarWinds breach that was in effect and how we would have addressed it if we were front-ending that SolarWinds deployment. I unfortunately am not technical enough to be able to answer it succinctly, but I do have a white paper on it. It's about 2 pages. It's a very interesting read, and if I could share my screen, I would share it with you now, but I don't think I can do that with On24. But Jim, I can send it to you and you can forward it on.
Yeah, so why don't, well, I'll take that as an action item, and I could send that to, I'll send it to all the attendees in case that matters, but specifically to the individual who asked. And I imagine you've had that question asked before, so. Yeah,
we have, and it's a very common question, and because that was a very painful event, right, for a lot of enterprises, and there were ways to protect against that, and that white paper I'm referring to talks to those ways.
So what are, another question for me, what is the compelling event outside of an attack that your customers are onboarding with CloudFlare? Is that renewals from existing products that you can consolidate into CloudFlare, or what, in your experience, what has been the kind of compelling event to move forward with a CloudFlare product?
Yeah, no, great question. So one of them is something we call CloudFlare for Teams. And CloudFlare for Teams is VPN-less connectivity to a back-end environment. And as you can imagine, with the pandemic, as I mentioned, we're coming out of, that was a big spike for us. So if anybody on the phone has ever heard of WARP, W-A-R-P, or 1.1.1.1, it's a free product. It's a DNS resolver. It's the fastest authenticated DNS resolver on the planet today, and it's free from CloudFlare. But the beauty of it being free is we now know where the quickest routes are and the most secure routes, and how to do all that stuff on our back-end infrastructure. Well, when the pandemic hit, there was an immediate need, obviously, for everybody to start looking at work from home. Well, the average cost of a VPN appliance managing a user, and this is per Gartner, I didn't make these numbers up, is between $23 and $31 a user on average to support, pay maintenance for, have the personnel deal with, turn up the license, et cetera. The other problem with the legacy VPN appliance model is when there's connectivity from the end user into that VPN appliance model, if that model or that box isn't up to spec or is breached, now all of a sudden that bad actor has access to everybody who's in the environment. In a CloudFlare scenario, we don't delineate whether an end user is a branch office, a co-location facility, a laptop, an iPhone. It's a CloudFlare entry point. It's between $8 and $14 a user. And we provide whatever the internet connection is fine. We just provide a VPN-less tunnel to our CloudFlare backend, and then whatever you decide you want that tunnel or that person to have access to is what we allow on the server side. So a small client will reside on the server saying, John Smith in Toronto, Canada is allowed to access my applications in my data center marked XYZ, and that's all he's allowed to have access to. So Teams has been a big growth factor for us, not only from a remote workforce perspective, but also from an external contracting perspective. A lot of customers are using contractors for certain projects, and they don't want to spin up VPNs because they're costly and difficult to manage. So They turn on a Teams instance to do it. So that's one aspect of where it's helped us. And I think the growth moving forward for us is going to be around security as a service and secure access service edge, right? We've all seen a growth in the migration of SD-WAN, and SD-WAN has done a good job of simplifying and mitigating the cost of MPLS environments. I think moving forward, you're going to see that providing SASE as an add-on or a replacement for SD-WAN is even a more seamless way to protect and prevent, as well as outperform what's currently there today. So yeah, I think SASE will be a big stepping stone already. Yeah.
We have I think we're seeing a little bit of that already along the SASE route, and how kind of next generation consolidating that all into an appliance or a virtual appliance at this point to give you security and network at the edge is pretty cool stuff. Last question, and this is from me, and I know the answer, but for any attendees, how do they get engaged with CloudFlare? And I could answer that for you, Ralph, if you want. But the answer is, so Ralph is Opkalla's channel manager for anyone who wants to know. And if CloudFlare is something you want to investigate, understand a little bit more about, have a more specific demo and conversation around your environment, you can reach out to one of your Opkalla team members. You could even reach out to Ralph, and I'm sure he could route you in the right direction. But ultimately, we can help connect the dots there if you prefer. As a next step, as I mentioned early on, we will be sending out a follow-up thank you email. 3 lucky attendees are going to get a gift card, but for the rest of the attendees, you will be getting the webinar recording. We will send out the document around SolarWinds to the user who or the attendee who asked. And then outside of that, I don't have any other action items for us. But Ralph, I think you did a great job. I think this is, at least in our experience, a really hot topic and seems to be really practical for a lot of organizations, and in some ways, hopefully cost saving even. So that being said, unless there are any other questions, we'll give everyone about 10 minutes back in their day. But Ralph, great job. I thought you hit a home run there, and thank you all for attending.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I appreciate the partnership very much with Opkalla, and appreciate the opportunity to present. And as Jim said, if anybody wants to see a demo of the user interface or the environment as a whole, I'm happy to set it up with Jim, and we can walk you through it. And by the way, for those on the phone, I'm in Charlotte, like Jim. In fact, I'm probably roughly 10 minutes from his office. So we can always, if we're to the point where we can meet face to face, where there's always an opportunity for us to get together and do that.
Great. Well, thank you all again. We appreciate it. And Christina, who you guys do not see, is on the back end. Christina, thank you for your help as well.
Yes, thank you, Christina.
Up, and you will be hearing from us soon. But thank you guys again. Have a good afternoon, and everyone be safe. Bye-bye.